Greetings, boys and girls. In today's video, we are going to be talking about creating dot plots and line plots. And these are ways that we can display data. So before we get into the actual lesson, let's start with a joke. Okay, here's one. Why can't you give Princess Elsa a balloon? Because she'll let it go, let it go. And then that'll be the end of the balloon. I thought that was cute. Okay, let's get into our first problem. So basically, we have data and we're going to present this data. And we're going to use a graph to present it so that someone else can look at it instead of just looking at some random numbers that you've collected. So our ultimate goal is to create a dot plot. So the first thing we want to do after we see our data, our first question is how old were you when you lost your first tooth, is we want to take this data and then make a frequency table with it. So we can see how many survey respondents said they lost their first tooth at 5, 4, 3, and so forth. So let's go ahead and set up our frequency table. So you can see that I looked at my data and I saw that it went from a low 3 all the way up to a higher 7. So on my frequency table, I've listed 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These are the ages, and then I'm just going to put a tally every time that I see that number in the data. So there's 1, 2, 3 5s that I see right away, so then I can put 3 tallies under 5s. Then I have a 4, a 7, a 6, a 3, 5, 7, 7, 5. I have another 5, a 4, a 7, a 5, a 6, a 5, and one more 5. Now, you notice that as I went through the data, I would cross off the numbers that I already used. I don't want to reuse the numbers, and I don't want to accidentally skip a number. So that's why I crossed it off. Now that I have my tallies, I can just write under frequency, this is how many times that happened. So I just had one tally mark for 3, so that meant only one respondent said they were 3 when they lost their first tooth. For 4 years old, there were 2 respondents. For 5 years old, there were 5 plus 4, which is 9 respondents. For 6 years old, there were 2 respondents. And finally, for 7 years old, I wrote 7. There were 4 respondents. So I'm going to put 4 right there. I am writing with a stylus, so it's a little difficult for me to write in a straight line. But when you're doing this, it would look neat if you just wrote it in a straight line. Now that I have that part of the information organized, I can now move on to actually making the dot plot. Now you see I already have my number line that I'm going to start with. You also have one. I don't have to start at the first line. I'm going to start right here, and I'm going to label the ages across the bottom. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I could label more, but this is all that my data includes, so I'm just going to label these. So now I'm going to use my frequency chart, and I'm going to record the frequencies of each of these ages. And I'm going to record them with a dot. So 3 years old at the loss of their first tooth, there was just one student one survey respondent that said that, so I gave them 1 dot. For the age of 4, there were 2 survey respondents, so I'm trying to do 2 dots. For 5, being the age of 5, there were actually 9 respondents. So I'm going to have a lot here. So I'm going to give myself 9 dots. That's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, for the age of 6, there were 2 respondents. And then for the age of 7, there were 4 respondents. Oh, I'm going to make that a little bit lower. Now, you'll notice I do have grid paper in the background of mine. I tried to do this so that I could see, I really wanted to try and line up my dots as much as possible so that if I look at it, the row of ones looks pretty much like they're in the same spot, and then the row of twos. It makes it so much easier to read your data if you do that. Okay, and if when you're looking at this dot plot, you're able to see, wow, a lot of kids reported that they lost their first tooth at 5 years old, and then the next highest was 7. And you're able to see this quickly because the data is presented in a neat way so that you can really understand what you're seeing. Okay? Go ahead and take a moment and get your dot plots done. Feel free to press pause on this video if you need more time. We're going to move on to the next one. So in this next part, students were asked for their height in inches. And you see the data that we have here. Just like in the previous problem, when I get ready to present my data as a dot plot, I want to first organize my data and just do a frequency table. So let me get mine started. All right, you can see how I have now set up my data, my frequency table. So I did skip some numbers because of space that I knew were not in the data. Now I can go through and just set up my frequency table. I'm going to start with my tallies. 1 for 53. 2 for 54. 1 for 61. 1 for 57. And 58. 1 for 54. 1 for 53. 1 for 55. 1 for 61, 1 for 58, 1 for 54, another for 54, another for 58, another for 55, another for 60. Oh, that was the first one for 60. Okay, so another for 58, and then 1 for 51. Now that I have my tallies, I can write down how frequently these numbers happened. So 51 inches, that happened once. And one thing I could add here is in inches. Okay, 53 happened twice. 54, 5 times. 55, 2 times. 57, 1 time. 58, 4 times. 59 didn't happen at all, so I put a 0. 60 happened once, and 61 happened twice. So once I have my frequency table together, the next part is pretty simple. Because in the next part, I'm simply going to put dots to represent each height. So you see I have my number line, I've labeled it height in inches. Now this time, I'm not going to label every single number. I'm going to label every other number. So I'll start over here, 51. I'm going to skip this one, but that would be 52, and I'm going to label this next one as 53. I skipped 54, and then I'll label 55. I skipped 56, and I'll label 57. I skipped 58, and I'll label 59. And then I'll skip 60 and label 61. Now, I'm doing it this way because there are going to be times when you see the data presented this way. Okay, maybe they just didn't have space to write all the numbers across, or maybe they just didn't feel like it. Since it's a number line, these values are equal distance apart. So you know right in the middle is going to be between 51 and 53 will be 52. All right, so let's take the data that we did the frequency table for, and we're going to plot it on this dot plot. So 51, I had 1 dot for 51. Nothing for 52. 1 dot for 53. 4 dots for 54. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, why did I say 4? There's 5 dots. 5. And then 2 dots for 55. 1, 2. 56 had no dots. 57 has 1 dot. 58 has 4 dots. 1, 2, 3, 4. 59 has no dots. 60 has 1 dot. And then 61 has 2 dots. So that's essentially what our dot plot looks like. And one thing I do want to note is you may see some graphs that are very similar, and instead of using lines, they actually use X's. Sorry, instead of using dots, they use X's. This is called a line plot. It is representing the same thing, they just used X's instead of making the little dots. I think it's a preference, or, you know, like what people around you use. But I think both of them are pretty straightforward and easy enough to read, whether you put a dot or a circle. Sorry, a dot or an X. Okay, so I'm going to give you an opportunity to go ahead and jot that down. Press pause on the video if you need more time. Otherwise, we're moving on to the very last problem. So this is one where students were asked, how many months are there until their next birthday? And so you see how the students responded. 9 months, 1 month, 11 months, 1 month, 7 months, 11 months. So we're going to take this data, and yet again, we are going to create a frequency table. So why don't you go ahead and get yours set up, and I'll get mine set up as well. So I want you to take this time again to go ahead and try and set your frequency table up on your own. All right. Hopefully you had a chance to do your frequency table. I got mine set up. Okay, so now I'm ready for the last part. This time I want us all to do a line plot. And one of the first things I like to do is I like to label it. So I'm going to label this one months until next birthday. Okay, the next thing I want to do is I want to figure out what scale do I want to use? This time, I am going to start at 0, and I'm going to count by 2s. 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. I know we're not going to be talking about more than 12 months because 12 months would make a year. Notice I did not put 1, 2, 3, I didn't put the odd numbers on here. I wanted to show you something else that you may see other people do. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with this, but you know right in between 0 and 2, there's the value 1. So when I have 3 people that said their birthday is just 1 month away, I can represent that with 3 X's. Now 4 people said their birthday was 2 months. Whoopsie. I was looking at the wrong section. So when I'm labeling 1, it's in between the 0 and the 2. Now when I'm going to put the 4 respondents down for 2, I'm putting it right above the 2. There are 3 respondents that their birthday was 3 months away. Notice I'm just doing X's this time instead of dots. There was only 1 respondent whose birthday was 4 months away. So I just have the 1 X there. Okay, nothing for 5, so I'll just leave that space in between the 4 and the 6 alone. Nothing for 6, and then there are 2 for 7. Nothing for 8, and then there's 1 for 9, and 1 for 10 months away. And then there are 3 for 11 months away. Again, notice that I tried to be mindful of the line, so I'm going to circle this. You don't need to circle it on your paper, but I just want you to notice that I really tried to make sure that the row of 3 X's, that they were in a row, and it's not like a random large amount of space in between. So today, you can see we had a chance to do some of these line plots or dot plots. Remember, the line plots are when they have the X's, and dot plots are if they have just the dots, but they represent the same thing. Okay, so as we get ready to close out this video, I just wanted to end with a joke. What's the difference between a guitar and a fish? Well, you can't tune a fish. I hope you get it. That's a musician joke if you didn't. All right, well, I hope today you enjoyed this video about making dot and line plots, and I hope it makes sense to you. And we will talk about using this data pretty soon. Take care. Until next time. Bye.